In this video, we're going to look at the four investment appraisal methods, and we're going to look at the accounting rate of return and payback period in detail. And then in the next part, we'll look at net present value and internal rate of return. So the four main formal methods that are used in practice are the accounting rate of return, the ARR, the payback period, the net present value, NPV, and the internal rate of return, the IRR. Smaller businesses will use such informal methods such as manager's instinct. So if Bob the plumber thinks he needs a new van, he'll make the decision based on his instincts rather than go through the formal methods. Now, firstly, looking at the accounting rate of return, ARR takes the average accounting profit, so we're looking at accounting profit, not cash flows, the investment will generate and expresses it as a percentage of the average investment in the project, measured in accounting terms as the accounting rate of return is equal to the average annual profit divided by the average investment to earn that profit times 100%. The calculation is two steps, so it requires two figures, the average annual profit and then the average investment in the project. So firstly, the first step is to calculate the average annual profit. It is the sum of the expected profits divided by the number of years of the project. Therefore, this is based on accrual accounting figures. So we take the average investment is the second step, and average investment is the average of the initial cost plus the residual value or the salvage value. And then we divide it by 2. So the initial cost plus the residual value divided by 2, because there are two components to calculate the average investment. If the investment yields a satisfactory return, then the firm will accept the investment. The formula presented here and in the text is only one way of defining the formula, so there are more than one way to do it. In practice, the formula varies significantly from firm to firm. For example, many firms would prefer the denominator to use the initial investment only rather than the average. For workshops, weekly content reviews, etc., the final exam will use the formula in the text. Advantages and disadvantages of the the accounting rate of return. The advantages, it's a simple calculation, it's easy to understand, and it's consistent with a ratio that is frequently calculated by firms, the return on interest, the ROI, or the return on assets, the ROA. So managers are already familiar with those ratios and the use of them. Disadvantages, it uses accounting profit, but over the project's life, I'll start that again. It uses accounting profit, but over a project's life, the cash flows matter more than accounting profits. It ignores the time value of money. Profits and costs may be measured in different ways, therefore manipulation is possible. The decision rule for the accounting rate of return, a project is to be acceptable must achieve a minimum preset target ARR, and there is no set rule as to what this target is. It will vary across firms. If competing projects exceed the minimum rate and the firm is required to select one only, select the one with the highest ARR. Okay, now these all work better with examples. So we're going to use this example for each of our methods. So the new equipment cost $120,000. The salvage value in 4 years' time, so that's what we expect to be able to scrap it for, is $55,000. So salvage value and residual value mean the same thing. We've got 4 years and the expected net cash inflows for 4 years. So year 1, we expect to get $30,000 as a net cash inflow. Year 2, $60,000. Year 3, $50,000. And year 4, $45,000. The required rate of return for the firm is 10%. We assume that depreciation is the only non-cash expense, and the required payback period is 3 years, and that is required for the payback period method only. Okay, so first we're going to look at the accounting rate of return, and the first thing that we have to do is calculate the average profit, and this is not the same as the cash flows. The amount of depreciation over the 4 years will be the amount of investment minus the residual value. So in the way that we've calculated depreciation before, so 120,000 minus 55,000. So the amount of depreciation over the 4 years will be 65,000. So to work out the average profit, we take the cash flow from each year minus the 65,000. So 30,000, 60,000, 50,000 plus 45,000 minus the depreciation of 65,000. We divide that by 4 and we get 30. So we're working in round thousands here. Second step, we calculate the average investment. So the average investment is we take the cost of the asset plus the salvage value and divide by 2. So 120,000 plus 55,000 divided by 2 is 87.5. Then the third step is to calculate the accounting rate of return itself. So the average profit divided by the average investment times 100%. So 30 divided by 87.5 is 34.3%. So the decision maker, do we accept the project or not, and why? The required rate of return is 10%. So the project earns 34.3%. So over 3 times this, so therefore we would accept it. Okay, for the payback period is the exact period of time necessary to recoup the initial cash, the initial outflow with the net cash inflows. So we work it out like this. So with our Deanna's Deli example, in year 0 is the cash outflow, and that's the initial outlay. In year 1, 30,000 is the inflow, 60,000 is the inflow. For year 2, 50,000 year 3, and 100,000 year 4. So we have to find the point where the net cash flow is exactly 0. So the initial investment is 120,000. In year 1, we're going to recoup 30,000 of that. So we need more. So in year 2, we're going to recoup another 60,000. So at the end of year 2, we've now recouped $90,000. After 2 years, we still need to recoup another 30,000 because we've recouped 90,000 out of the 120. We still need another 30. The total cash flow year 3 is 50,000, which is too much. So what we have to work out is the additional time to pay back in year 3, the amount still needed divided by the total flow in that year. So we know that we need 30,000. We divide it by 50,000, so it will be 0.6 of a year. Therefore, the total payback period is 2.6 years. We can convert this to months. 0.6 of 12 months is 7.2 months. So if we take it a step further and convert it to months, the payback period is 2 years and 7.2 months. Either answer would be fine. So you could have 2.6 years or 2.2 years and 7.2 months. If the investment shows even cash flows, the same inflow in each year, you do not need to follow that procedure. In these circumstances, the payback period equals the initial investment divided by the amount of the annual cash inflow. And this is illustrated in one of the workshop questions. The decision rule for the payback period varies between entities, but most have a maximum period beyond which they would not invest. For Deanna's Deli, the required payback period is 3 years. 2.6 years is less than 3 years, therefore we would accept this investment. Obviously, the quicker the payback period, the better. Cash is available sooner to invest in other projects, and also with a shorter payback period, there's less opportunity for unseen events. The advantages and disadvantages of the payback period. Advantages, it's simple to calculate, easy to understand. It's a crude measure of incorporating risk into the decision. The decisions, it ignores all cash inflows after payback has occurred. So less profitable short-term investments may not be accepted. It's too simple to use as a decision support tool by itself. So we would usually use the payback period in conjunction with one of the other methods. And it also ignores the time value of money. Okay, so this concludes part 2. We're going to look at the net present value and the internal rate of return in the next part.